Greetings, ladies and gents, and welcome to the one-shot double feature from the subreddit HFY. Both of these stories have been written by LgFatherAnthrocite. The link to the originals will be down below. And as always, I hope that you enjoy. Story number 1. Adaptability. When the first wave of the Benghazi war drones swarmed across the planets of the GLQ, humans, like many species, fought and died by the tens of billions. When the wave broke, many thought the threat had passed, but the humans, in their strangely obsessive way, gathered every bit of data they could: fleet movements, troop placement, supply distribution, everything. Even the helmet canvas of the GLQ United Enforcement Troops. For years they studied every battle, engagement, skirmish, and hand-to-claw fight, like only humans can, and they dissected and analyzed every bit, sucked every insight from the incidents, outing and offensive that they could. When the second wave came, we were ready. We were ready because the humans were ready. Only 7 million humans died, less than half of any other species in the GLQ. Their strategy, tactics, and methods drove back the Benghazi in mere 3 months. But the third wave, the Benghazi didn't even make it to the GLQ space. Humans had stationed blockade ships around the Benghazi systems and turned them back before they could even start. Less than 10,000 humans died, and no other species suffered more than a few dozen casualties, mostly pirates and would-be war profiteers. Many think that the human adaptability is about the way that they will live on any rock with breathable air or liquid water. Some think that there is a psychological ability to endure and overcome physical trauma. And while these things are true, what they really refer to is the human ability to pull apart and examine every aspect of a thing. If you need to live in an ice world, send humans. They will figure out how to survive and thrive there. Need to improve a star drive design? Human engineers will tear apart, rebuild it, make it faster, more efficient, and hand you back a crate of leftover parts. Need to win a war? Ally with the humans, and they will learn how to destroy any foe. Learn every strength, exploit every weakness, and rise above any challenge. That is human adaptability. End of story 1. Story number 2. Superhuman. Tim was driving home from his job at the warehouse. He had spent the last several years working at a manufacturing plant on a heavy gravity world called Hon. His cybernetic implants and augmented muscles and bones made it relatively easy for him to operate in the harsher environment. Compared to his alien co-workers, his ground cruiser was slower than Earth cars, but did the job just as well. In the raining of Hon, which made things move more slowly, higher weights and slippery surfaces made for treacherous conditions. He was waiting for traffic lights to change in an industrial neighborhood when he saw the cruiser going the other way break free and skid into a wall. He immediately pressed the emergency call button on the dashboard of his cruiser, an innovation that made it easy to summon emergency responders. He heard a beep and he said, "Cruiser crash." He parked his cruiser on the curb and ran over to the crashed vehicle, now covered in rubble and debris from the crash, the wall having partially collapsed. He heard the sirens in the distance. He looked into the passenger compartment and saw that the roof was collapsed and pinning the occupants in their seats. He stood up and gripped the largest of the rubble, a large section of plasticrete. He threw it to the side of the vehicle, and he heard the sirens get louder and louder as he continued to clear the rubble, giving the emergency responders clear access to the vehicle. When they arrived, they were able to remove the injured aliens in minutes instead of hours. Tim gave his statements to the law officers and left, leaving the first responders to do their work. He read in the newsfeed the next day that both the injured aliens had survived, thanks in part to the assistance of a bystander who helped to dig out the cruiser. It was another normal day in the plant for Tim. He was using a grav unit to roll large crates full of engine parts from the dock to the machining room. He was parking the latest crate on the stack when an alarm went off. Everyone was running towards the stamping room, and Tim went with them. Inside the stamping room, a large bolt had sheared off and an armature had fallen on top of the lower limbs of one of the plant workers. Tim pushed his way to the front and lifted the broken part off his co-worker. Several others dragged him out from under it, and Tim set the part back down, breathing heavily from the exertion. The plant medic was treating the hurt alien, and Tim and the others went back to work. Tim heard later that the alien would likely be able to walk again, as the armature would not have cut off vital fluids from his limbs for an extended period of time. As Tim was walking home from the food stalls he liked, with a hot skewer of space pig meat and a stack of pita-like flatbread, he heard angry voices down an alley. He stopped and listened to what sounded like a mugging. He dialed the police on his compad, gave his location, and started down the alley. By the time the police got to the location of the call, the old lady was sitting with the tied-up miscreant, his arms bound with a power cord from the discarded toaster. Or at least that was what the nearest Earth equivalent was. She had a video on her compad that showed her being harassed by the bound alien, including threatening her with a shock wand. In respect to the space pig, Tim didn't know what it was. That was just the name that helped him eat it. He tried not to think about what he was eating, as that made it difficult to keep it down sometimes. Over the next several months, more and more incidents were reported. Finally, someone from one of the local news agencies noticed the pattern and started to put together a story. Car accident victims rescued, industrial accident victim rescued, muggers detained with evidence of wrongdoing, children rescued from collapsed buildings, store robbery stopped by an unarmed patron. Little things, big things, it didn't matter. The savant could help, and so he did help. When emergency workers showed up, he either left after giving a statement, or more likely than not, just left. Not all the time, but 2 out of 3 times a month. A snippet here about a helpful citizen, and a post there about someone receiving an anonymous help. Some were seeking a person to reward or thank, others were just grateful. Over time, the list of deeds grew, and the posts and snippets were specifically highlighting in the news feeds. The stories of the savant's strengths, calm, and shyness were making it urban legends. He would show up to help, make sure that the authorities were there to help before leaving, and never ask for anything in return. Tim was walking through the city centre one day, on a sunny afternoon off. He had decided to get some new clothes and maybe upgrade the model of his compad. As he stood outside the clothing store, looking at the latest in what passed for an alien fashion, he felt a tug on his sleeve. He turned and found an elderly alien looking up into his face. She trilled a little when she saw his features, and said in a broken English, "Thank you for the rescue, ma." It was the lady Tim had saved from the mugger nearly a year ago. He knelt down, his 5'10" frame nearly twice her height. "Kef tough gone," he replied. "My honor to serve," was the traditional response from the local dialect. The alien stroked his cheek, and he stroked hers, a traditional familiar farewell ritual, not unlike a hug. He stood and walked away slowly through the crowd. Several years later, Tim's body was recovered from a burned-down building. It was identified by his cybernetic implants. When questioned, the residents of the building stated that he'd pulled out several individuals out of the building and had just lowered a pair of juveniles from the second-story window. Floor and roof collapses were very common in fires in this world due to the high gravity. When the investigators searched Tim's home, they found a diary full of press clippings and journal entries detailing each of the incidents. On the first page was a picture of the Land Cruiser that he dug out of the rubble, and a note. It said, "Today, I am superhuman." End of the second story. And that, my friends, is the end of this Reddit Quickie. I hope that you enjoyed. If you would like to support this channel, there are numerous ways to do so, listed in the description down below. The easiest and best way would be to share this video and my channel as much as possible. I'll see you all in the next video, and I hope that you have a good one until then. Cheers. P.S. With all the changes in YouTube recently, it has become more a case of when my account will get banned rather than if my account will be banned, the same as everyone else. If you look down below, there is a link to my SoundCloud account where everything gets backed up. I recommend that you follow that account just in case something happens to this account. Other than that, everything will still continue as normal. Thanks. Cheers.